It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Friday, February 7th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that really wishes Michkov had made that Michigan shot.
Yeah, he gave it a go.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade. I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. And to keep up with our latest episode and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, I have never seen like a broadcast crew so excited about two dudes in black jackets up in the press box.
I know, right?
My life. Jacob Peltier and Andrei Kuzmenko are actually here in Philadelphia. They obviously did not play in the game, but they made it to the arena in time for at least a portion of the game.
And probably a portion of the meatballs that were served, which was an oddity for the Flyers, but they had some meatball sandwiches. So there you go.
Yeah. Now, as for the game against the Washington Capitals, we're just talking before we were recording, and for me, it's so much more frustrating when the Flyers lose a game like this because they generally played pretty well overall and did an excellent job preventing the Washington Capitals from getting a ton of chances here. And the Flyers well outchanced the Caps, and as far as high danger shots go, the Flyers had 16 high danger chances, Caps only 6, and yet that was the final score. And that's what happens when you're a really good team like the Caps. You find ways to win these kind of games, right?
Yeah, and they're used to, they talked about in the locker room, they're used to being down in the third period and coming back and winning. They do it a lot. And so it's second nature to them. They never think they're out of a game, and for good reason. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, while those two goals in the third period were definitely unfortunate for the Flyers to give up, one of them was a giveaway that led to it. The other one was, I think, just a great play by the Caps, right? So,
yeah. One was a bad giveaway by Konecny, but I also feel like Fedotov went down way too soon on that shot. Like, there was no reason to go down on it. Like, he was down, he was waiting for the puck, he's looking for it to go on the other side. He got back up, and then he went back down. It's like, why? I get, like, they had this discipline, but sometimes you got to buck it.
Yeah, I think so. But I do think overall, Fedotov played generally well. Now, he didn't face
some really good chances. He did.
Yeah, he didn't face a ton of shots, but the shots he did face were all very good. And, the one that rang off the post, like, I think he just like slightly missed it there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. One thing that was prevalent in the Caps locker room with Charlie Lindgren, he said that he felt Matvei Michkov was the best player on the ice tonight. But in the pregame scouting session, he knew to watch out. He watched all of his Michigans. And so he knew when he had the puck there, he knew he had to get up on the post, and he did. And so he was ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, given Michkov's MO there. But at the same time, Michkov hasn't tried it as much recently.
No.
And he was finding success in other ways in this game. He had already had the 2 goals. And so I think it could have been a surprise for him to try it, given that he was finding success, out in front of the net.
I mean, we say that, but Lindgren says no, so I got to go with what the guy says.
Yeah, I guess. But
he was feeling it. I think the point is he was feeling it, and I had just said a show ago that he wasn't as happy as he was tonight. It's not all about scoring. It's just all about feeling good on the ice and getting chances. And so, there was a much better feeling for him tonight.
Yeah, and I posted over on Blue Sky, like, let Michkov be Michkov.
Right.
And that's kind of what we were talking about last show, right? Just
Yep.
about let him play his game his way, let him get his scoring touch back, and everything else will fall into place for him. And that's why I said that. And lo and behold, he did get the 2 goals, and I thought, in the second period, those goals, like the Flyers passing was wonderful, like just really
Yeah.
well thought out, well executed passing plays. The Abels to Michkov pass. There was like another sequence that almost got Tyson Forster another goal that was really good, and yeah, like they were getting their chances. So it's really hard to be mad overall at this one.
No, I mean, a good thing was Abels and Michkov had a little chemistry there with the two of them, and that's good. I did post on Blue Sky that, hey, uh, this is why we were kind of advocating for Abels to get up earlier, be called up earlier,
Mhm.
because he has a little bit of ability, and I still think he's not being utilized like where he could play in front of the net on the power play. Maybe at some point they'll figure that one out, but they're figuring out the other part, and that's good because Abels is on a 1-year deal. You got to figure out if you want to bring him back or not.
Right, and, it was also interesting because Sean Couturier was on that line too, and
Yeah,
I was the whole game, I was like, "This is how you use Sean Couturier, in
yeah,
this way, with players like this," and so, supporting Michkov, supporting Abels. You look at his face-off stats for the game, I believe he was 67%
yeah. And he
at the
was
dot.
really good in the defensive zone. He was winning some big
Yeah.
faceoffs, no question.
Yeah, and that's why I was just like I was, like, yelling at my TV, like, about Sean Couturier, who, like, didn't get on the scoreboard,
No,
but at the same time made huge contributions to this game.
he did. On the downside, I still have to say that it's disheartening. Cam York can't even hit the net anymore. And we've seen this happen with Flyers defensemen, like when they lose confidence. And shooting wise, he's lost confidence. His game is still good, but his offense is just in the tank.
Yeah, it is frustrating. I definitely see that, and I think he's also, again, as is often the case with Flyers defensemen, being asked to do things that are above where he is in his
No question.
development. And
Yep.
like we saw that with Travis Sanheim, and he
Yep.
got there, but
Yeah.
it took him some extra time because of the position he was put in, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like there's some similarities going on there with Cam York and his game. However, I want to say Emil Andrae,
Oh yeah.
we saw the upside to his game so much in this game. I thought he played overall pretty solidly defensively, not perfect, but I
No,
think
but he
there
was
was.
pushing guys in the corner.
Mhm.
Like we saw this the last time he was up, and they had a winning record with him. We didn't think he should have been sent down, and he could have been here this whole time, and he should have been here this whole time. They don't have anybody else at the point that could shoot the puck
Yeah.
like him and that can bring the puck up the ice like him. Now Jamie's close with bringing the puck up the ice, but shooting not close.
Right, and, I mean, you saw Emil Andrae on the power play make
Yeah.
a perfect shot for
Yep.
somebody else net front to tip. I mean,
Yep.
that's what we need from the defenseman at the
Yeah.
point on the power play, and you find success when you have somebody that can do that, and
Makes a big
he was
difference.
also creating space for himself. I thought
He was.
his movement and his puck movement and his skating is exactly like, this is the Emil Andrae we thought we were getting, and he's there. Yeah, I just think it'll be interesting to see if they find an excuse to send him down, because there isn't one. There just flat out isn't at this point.
Right. I do have to call out the coaching staff on the 6-on-5. There was a play, I want to say their second go round of trying to bring the puck in the zone. That the 6-on-5 was brutal. But when they were trying to bring the puck in the zone, there was somebody, and I can't remember who it was, who was standing before the line. Why would you stand above the line and not in? I mean, and the puck went right to him, and it was like the Caps were like, "Hey, thanks. The puck's not even in the zone now." It's like I didn't understand it. He was like a foot from there. If you want someone to bring the puck into the zone, don't stand like right next to the line there because you're a sitting duck. And he was a sitting duck. The Caps just jumped right on him, and it's just I don't understand it. But they just look like a mess. And you can't say it's just because they don't have a lot of talent in the lineup right now. It's been all year, 6-on-5.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked about it very frequently on the show. And I think that goes hand in hand with the power play to a large degree,
Yeah.
and special teams there, which we will continue to talk about. And hopefully they can take some momentum into this game against Pittsburgh. And we are going to be talking about the game against Pittsburgh coming up next. Looking for tickets to your next big event? Whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache, but with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now, and their curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. So there's no more sifting through all those options. Their seat view feature is a game changer. And before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat view will look like in the venue. It's so reassuring. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. On Monday's show, of course, we will recap Flyers versus Pens that we are about to talk about. We're going to talk more about Four Nations in terms of looking at the teams in detail. We're going to talk about the Flyers a little bit later in the show that are playing. Plus, we'll have our nemesis of the week on Monday as well. So the Pittsburgh Penguins, I think it's really interesting what is going on with the Pens right now, because I think there are some similarities with what is happening with the Flyers and an attempted rebuild that's kind of on the fly. Like, you look at what Chuck Fletcher did here, who ironically replaced Ron Hextall, who then went to Pittsburgh and kind of did the same thing and put the Pens in a similar boat that they're trying to get out of now.
Right.
So there is a lot happening here. So last week, their big trade, at the same time the Flyers had theirs, they traded Marcus Patterson to the Canucks. That sent Danton Heinen and Vincent Desharnais to the Pens. They also got a 2025 first round pick that's top 13 protected. That was originally a New York Rangers pick. So that's an interesting pick for them to have.
It is.
But I think, what were the Pens trying to do with this trade, do you think?
Well, they definitely wanted the first because they still have
Yeah.
to bolster the farm system, and this could turn out to
Yeah.
be a really nice pick. If the Rangers miss the playoffs, it's going to be a good pick.
Mhm.
So that's something. And then you've got, Danton Heinen's still a decent player in this league. So it's somebody they definitely could use. Look, Pedersen is probably one of the 3 or 4 best defensive defensemen in the league. Penguins don't need it. Like, they just not right now, and they weren't going to pay him long term. So it's
And the
really,
Canucks just did pay him long term. They extended
Yes.
him. So
yes. So it's really, and Desharnais plays a tough brand of hockey. So it's just about filling that spot with somebody. So that's fine. You filled it with Desharnais. You get Heinen, who could just play. He's not going to give you a lot, but you got the first, and that was the big deal.
yeah, I agree with you there. I think the pick was the most important part. And Heinen and Desharnais are already off and running with the Pens right now. So I think it's a good move to try and set him up for the future. We'll
is.
see how that Rangers pick turns out, especially because it is top 13 protected in terms of where they end up, lottery wise or in the playoffs or whatnot. The other big thing happening with the Pens right now is a potential injury to Sidney Crosby. And, he left their game against the New Jersey Devils earlier in the week for a portion of the third period. There was a collision. He
Yeah.
did return briefly at the end of that game, but he skipped practice Wednesday. And then at Thursday's practice, he really skated separately on the other rink for most of it and didn't really do a full practice. So as of our recording, it's TBD in terms of is he even going to be there against the New York Rangers, which is the next game in the queue for the Pens before they play the Flyers.
I think he'll travel, be a game time decision. I think it might be his shoulder. So
Yeah,
it definitely doesn't seem to be concussion related. So that's, that would be good news. So
that's so good, right?
yeah, I mean, I'm just playing a doctor. I don't know for sure, but that's what it looked like. Other people said the same thing to me. So yeah, I think he'll be back. I don't know if he'll be back for the Ranger game. They might just decide to not use him until after the Four Nations and let the Four Nations use him. Either way, it's not going to matter on their season. I know they're not going to just say, "Hey, we give up because we're 7 points out," but they know the deal.
Yeah, and Jesse Puljujarvi, who was kind of a reclamation project for them this season, got sent down to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. So
It's
that's
over.
kind of a bummer. Yeah,
It's over for him. I don't think,
yeah,
if he wants to play in the AHL, hey, that's great. But it's in the NHL, it's over.
yeah. But it's so much of a bummer, I think, because he was a kid with a lot of promise and
He
things
was a
just
guy with a lot of promise. There was just so many things. We could do a whole show on why it didn't work out.
now. Unfortunately, given the Flyers 4-game losing streak here, they are tied for last in the Metro with the Pittsburgh Penguins at the moment, but they're still like kind of within striking distance of a playoff spot, which is, I mean, we know that it's not likely to happen, but the math says it's
I know.
possible,
That's the way
right?
this league is, though.
Yeah, yeah, of course, but that's the way this division is this year. And
Yes.
I think that, you know, I don't think anybody expected the Penguins to make the playoffs this year, but I don't think
No.
a lot of people expected them to be as chaotic as they've been this season either.
No, I think they've really bottomed out, and I think this might be it for Mike Sullivan.
Yeah.
So, I know Mike Sullivan will have a good time with the Four Nations with his son-in-law, Charlie McAvoy, and that might be the highlight of his season.
I always forget about that connection there
Yeah.
in USA hockey, but it will be fun. Yeah, like in the Pens last 10, they were 4-5-1. This is prior to the Rangers game that they are facing them tonight. They lost to the Devils in a shootout in that game where Crosby potentially got hurt. They did shut out Nashville last Saturday, but that's also Nashville, who's in their own struggle bus this season.
Right. And don't
And
forget, the one thing we should highlight, because I didn't, and we'll talk about the Four Nations later, is that John Tortorella will be wearing a suit. So we do need to
wow,
mention that.
okay. We also already talked about the fact that the Pens won in overtime over Utah before that when we were previewing the
Yeah.
Flyers Utah game. And Malkin is still out, and former Flyers prospect Jack St. Ivany, who Hextall brought into the Pens organization, is out. And so, I think this is a team kind of being held together on a shoestring a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah. Their road record's brutal. They're okay at home, but they're 9-14-5 on the road. Like, they're
Yeah.
brutal. So, yeah, if Crosby doesn't play, it's totally winnable. It's winnable anyhow, but then it really makes it winnable.
Right, right. And John Tortorella had already said that Sam Ersson is going to play in net in this game, given that Fedotov played against the Caps and it's the last game before the break.
Right.
Nedeljkovic started for the Pens versus the Devils, and is likely to start against the Rangers. Don't know for sure as of recording, but my guess is we'll see him again, but
Probably.
we'll see against that. I think again, based on recording time and what we know about this visa situation for the Flyers new guys, I think it'd be very interesting to have their first game as Philadelphia Flyers against the Pittsburgh Penguins and introduce them to
Well,
the
that's the way it's
rivalry right
lining
away.
up. I mean, it's just,
Yeah,
if they had any luck at all, they might be playing, but they just have had such bad luck with this.
I know. I think really ultimately the Flyers just have to shoot a lot in this game against
Yes.
the Pens because the Pens have the second highest goals against per game in the NHL. They have a worse shooting percentage than the Flyers, if you can believe it.
It's hard to
Uh,
believe.
yeah, although the Flyers shooting percentage has gotten gradually better over the second half of the season thus far, but still, that's really what's going on with the Pens here is that they're just brutal in
They're
terms
1 and
of
5 in the
scoring.
shootout, although we shouldn't mention that because then my wife will get mad because it'll be like, oh yeah,
It'll
I'll
be
be
a
late.
late game.
I'll be late.
Yeah.
But the Flyers could beat them in the shootout, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and, the Flyers and Pens are pretty similar in terms of goals for per game. The Pens are just honestly, the only thing that they're decently better than the Flyers at is the power play, and that's, like, one thing that they were terrible at last year and, like, made a concerted effort to improve, and they did, which is I would say, like, the big difference maker in this game. So the other thing is the
Yeah.
Flyers need to stay out of the box.
Yeah, no question. I mean, if Crosby's healthy, he's terrible to face when he's on the power play. He's just super creative
Mhm.
still and causes all kinds of problems. Not that Malkin doesn't, he does. And Letang's not playing, right? So
Oh, he
you
could
know that
be. He
he
could
could be.
be.
So but I don't know if he's going to. So that's a help. But yeah, they're still they have Eric Carlson, like, on any given
I know. It's like
situation.
Crosby and Carlson. Like, what are you gonna do,
Right.
right? So stay out of the box and shoot a lot is really
Right.
what the Flyers need to do in this
Yes.
game, and I think it would be a good statement game regardless of, the big picture circumstances to beat the Pens.
Yeah, as
I
bad as
think it
the
would.
Penguins defense is now, and it's definitely compromised, this is where it'd be a no-brainer to have Michkov in the top 6, but is that
Yep.
gonna happen? I'm not gonna hold my breath.
Yeah, we will see. We are heading into the Four Nations break after that game against Pittsburgh. So we're going to talk a little bit about the updates there as well as expectations for the Flyers playing in it and what the other Flyers should be doing during the break. We're going to do that coming up next. All right, so we have this week and a half ish off for this Four
Well,
Nations
some of us
tournament.
do, some of us don't.
Well, some of us don't. I will be attending the Four Nations games in Boston, so I'm excited to do that and cover it in person, and hopefully get some Flyers perspectives while I am up there. Meanwhile, for tournament player changes, we have Zach Werenski, who's likely back and will play. Ricard Raquel replace William Carlson.
To be honest, I'd rather have
It was
Raquel.
her.
I think
Yeah,
Carlson's better overall, but Raquel's a better scorer.
yeah. I think there is a question about Quinn Hughes due to some
Yeah,
potential injury there.
he hasn't played in 3 straight games now. He didn't travel to San Jose. He was practicing, he's not practicing. I think they're playing it safe. And it said the Canucks are working with the Four Nations crew to kind of, get this done. So they might just say, hey, you know what? Quinn's going to go, and maybe he doesn't even play the first game or the second game.
Right.
It might be something like that, and then he comes back then, and they stay in contact with the Canucks. It's going to be something like that.
That would be my guess. He's too much of a PR boon for
Right.
the tournament to at least
Right.
not show up even if he's hurt.
I'm sure if
So
I'm sure if Mike Sullivan asked John Tortorella to call the Canucks, he'd be happy to let him know.
I don't know if they'd listen to him, but
I think honestly, I think they would let the call ring through and go to voicemail.
oh God. Anyway, Team Finland is going to have some changes as well. Henry Yokoharu and Uro Vakanainen are going to play instead of Mira Heiskanen. That is a big loss.
Oh yeah, that's a huge drop. Well, although I'll say this, without Heiskanen, that's a big deal. Hakanpää's been kind of like beat up the last 2-3 years, and his knee is shot. Like he's
right.
so honestly, even Vakanainen is a better defenseman than Hakanpää because he can play. So I think in the end, it's a drop down. It's not the end, but I don't give much chance for Finland in this tournament. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't either. Speaking of Team Finland, that is a good transition to talking about Rasmus Ristolainen and will/should he play? Right now, I think he would slot in at a second pairing. Some people say he'll play with Olimata, but I don't. I think it could be now, obviously not as important as Quinn Hughes is to Team USA, but I
Right.
think maybe it's a similar situation where he skips the first game and then slots in the second.
I mean, it's important, and I don't think it matters who he plays with. Come on, that was a good pun.
Oh God, sorry, it took me half a second there.
I think it could boost his trade value too. I
Yeah,
do.
yeah. So I do think it's important for him to play on both fronts
Yes,
because I
it
think
is.
Finland clearly needs him,
They definitely need
but
him.
also it'd be good for him to show that he's healthy in terms of trade potential for trade deadline for
Yes,
sure. Sam Ersson, I don't think he's gonna play because Olmark is back.
right. I don't think he's playing either. I think he'll just have a good seat.
Yeah, and I think that's good because he's there and he's gonna practice and stay
Yeah,
warm, but
yeah.
not play games. And
What do you mean stay warm? Like he instead of sitting outside and no, you mean just because he gets to
his
practice.
gets reps and stuff.
Okay.
Yes, but John Tortorella talked about that specifically before the Caps game, in that in an ideal world, all of his guys would get rest during the Four Nations break, but he knows how important it is that some of these guys play. And for Sam Ersson, he is playing in the game against the Pens, like I said. And so, he doesn't want him to have too much time off because goalies need to keep playing
Right.
and keep going. But at the same time, having game rest could be a good thing for him
Yeah, and it'll be
because he's
interesting.
getting overplayed anyway.
Right. It'll be interesting because John won't be his direct boss.
But John Tortorella did say that Ersson played one of the best games in net he's ever seen. So
He did. He used a little hyperbole though, in the sense that because he was like for anybody, and then it's like, okay, so like, there's Henrik Lundqvist to contend with
I
there.
know.
But okay, it's a little hyperbole. But he
Yeah.
was terrific, no doubt.
Yeah. Now for Team Canada, I think this will be interesting. Travis Konecny, it looks like he may be on their fourth line there, which is still an unbelievably embarrassment of riches
It's
for the
Canada.
line
Like they're
there.
just loaded.
Yeah, NHL.com predicted that he'll be on a line with Anthony Cirelli and Sam Bennett, and I'm just like drooling at that line
Yeah,
as like a
imagine if that
top
was a
line.
Flyers line. You'd be like,
I
oh, this
know,
is a great line.
I know. Like that would be a great top line for the
Yeah,
Philadelphia
it
Flyers
would be.
right now.
It's tremendous. It's just, Mark Stone, the reason like he's on the third line is because he's so good defensively. So, and he's pretty good at taking out players too, as you saw with Heiskanen. So
Yeah.
based on that, and I don't know if he did it on purpose. I'm just saying it's hard. It was hard to tell. But the point is, he's really good defensively, and that's something where on the line that he's on, would you say it was Hagel and on that third
Uh,
line?
on the third line, that was with Braden Point and Brandon
Right.
Hagel. Yeah.
Yeah, neither are defensive stalwarts, so that he balances it.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. And of course, he wasn't going to crack the top six in this stacked
No,
lineup for sure.
no.
So, um, but yeah, an embarrassingly talented Team Canada there. Travis Sanheim, I would expect he'd be third pairing
Yeah,
on that
he
team.
will be.
Just because you have Cale Makar and Devin Taves as the top pairing, which is also ridiculous, and Shea Theodore, Colton Parayko. I personally might put a Josh Morrissey, Travis Sanheim pairing ahead of
Oh my
that,
God, that would be tremendous
but
because yeah, he'll be the more defensive guy because Morrissey's just tremendous
yeah,
offensively. But that's a good pairing. I like it.
that's a really good pairing. Again, that's what NHL.com is saying, but
Yeah,
I actually don't disagree with their defense.
no,
I might
I don't
disagree with
disagree.
some of their forward lines, but I don't
Yeah.
disagree with the defensive pairings that they've set out. Also drooling over the potential of a Josh Morrissey, Travis Sanheim pairing in
Oh
Philadelphia
yeah,
because
that would be
I've
just.
I love Josh Morrissey. He's
Oh
one
yeah,
of my favorite NHL players.
he doesn't
So
get enough pub because he's in Winnipeg, but he's so good.
yeah, like the best team in the NHL, Josh Morrissey, best defenseman, and
Right.
like crickets about him. It's
I
so
know.
upsetting like, yeah, I've always been team get Josh Morrissey out of Winnipeg, but
Yeah,
alas, that is not to be,
it's
I'm
not
sure.
happening.
Yeah. Now, as far as like the other Flyers who aren't playing, obviously we want guys to heal up, right?
Yeah.
So Owen Tippett, it would be great if he could be back right after the break. We'll
But
see
that's
what
what they're
happens
saying. He's
there.
not playing in that Saturday game either, so
Yeah.
he won't be back till after the break.
And then I think guys like Nick Seeler need to heal up
Yeah.
a little
He
bit.
needs to be in like a hyperbaric chamber for his vacation.
Yeah, I think so. And, it will be interesting to see what happens with the guys that are, that have been call ups in this like gap between having the new guys from Calgary, if they'll stick,
Yeah.
like if Gaucher will go back to Lehigh
He has to.
Valley.
Like, you want him to play.
Yeah.
Kolosov will go back down. You want him to
Mhm.
play. Like, you want these guys to play.
Yep. Yep. But with Richard and Abels, that's the question I will have.
I sent
If
him right back down. Let
Yeah,
him go
if
and
both
play.
of them go back down or just 2 of them go back down.
Nope, all of them. Send them all down.
So, we'll see what happens there, but, hopefully we'll see the new guys on, Saturday against the Pens,
As long as there's
and
no ice storms or anything, it looks good.
oh my gosh. The absolute chaos. Anyway, that will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back on Monday to talk Flyers versus Pens and have our nemesis of the week as we start this Four Nations break. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So let us know your mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert. Get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great weekend, everyone.